So it's really good to see lots of different attendees from all over the world. So this is our team. So as you can see, it's quite a big team. So we started as a much smaller team initially, but over the past year and a half, we've had a lot of people reach out and sort of really want to be part of the community and get involved with not only the planning, the speaking, the sort of organising of it, and we've continued to grow. We've got a large wealth of experience. We've got people on the team that are interns on the mainframe and have only been working on it for around 9 months. And we have that all the way up to team members that have 30 years experience on the mainframe. So we have a really colourful group, but we are always looking to expand. So I can tell you a little bit about that now. So we are always looking for people to get involved, and we have various different ways that you can do this. So we have organisers, which is what the core team do, and we organise the events. We usually spend around 4 hours a month. It's about an hour a week we spend, and we have a meeting each week. So that's the sort of time commitment that's involved in that. But there are many different areas, such as sponsors, sponsoring an event, and we have speakers. We have 4 wonderful speakers today. Even recruiters, we've had recruiters involved, hosts, and of course you as the audience. As you can see on this slide, there are different sort of time commitments for each sort of area, but this is all, we can adapt this depending on you. So if you are interested in being involved in this in any way, just reach out to one of us on our social media channels or our Slack channel, and let us know that you want to get involved, and we can get you involved in any way that you can. So I briefly touched on this a second ago, but we have various different social media platforms that we are on. We have different communication channels and ways you can get in contact with us. So if you do have any ideas that you want to see, any sessions that you would like to see covered in the future, please reach out to us on one of these channels and just let us know. And again, like I said, if you want to be involved, these are the channels that you should use to get in contact with us. Okay. So we have quite a packed agenda at the moment on this call, so I'm going to try and not witter on too much longer, because I know that you've came here to hear the great speakers that we have. So the agenda for tonight is the introduction, which I'm covering at the moment. We're then going to move on to 4 lightning talks that should last around 10 minutes. Apologies in advance if I have to cut anyone off, any speakers that are overrunning, but I'm sure, since you're all wonderful timekeepers, that I won't have to do that. We will then move into a question and answer session for the panel. So on that note, we have a Slack channel where you can submit your questions to, and the other option for submitting questions would be the question and answer section on the WebEx event. We have a lovely team that are going to be monitoring these questions, and we will make sure that we get some time at the end of these to answer any questions. You can submit these for any of the speakers that are on, or if it's just a general question that you want anyone to answer, pop it in. Okay, so moving on to the actual event. As I said before, these are unprecedented times that we've found ourselves in, and we wanted to use this session to chat a bit around mainframe skills development and what you can do while you're working from home. So as we've all got a little bit of extra time in our hands, there are a lot of resources out there that we can use for people that are completely new to the mainframe. Those that are maybe just wanting to try something a bit new, or some people maybe just want to develop the skills that they already have. Okay, now for the stars of the hour. We have 4 lightning talks. First of all, we are going to have Herb Daly and Lukáš Jakš. So Herb is hang on my words out here. Herb is a computer science lecturer, and it has been for many years. And he has also brought with him today Lukáš Jakš, who is a student at the University of Wolverhampton. They are going to talk to us around Master the Mainframe and their experiences with the programme. We're then going to move on to Mark Hostler, who is the offering manager for Z-Trial, and he's going to chat to you a little bit about how you can get started with Z-Trial. Thirdly, on the agenda, we have Paul Fairbairn. He is the Z Client Skills Leader for Europe, So he's going to chat a little bit about what sort of free training is available that you can do for all the different levels. And finally, last but not least, we have Tom Ross, which many people will know as Captain COBOL. He has very kindly agreed to get up a little bit earlier in his day to cover a little bit about COBOL, as we all know that that's quite a hot topic at this moment in time. So I'm going to stop wasting your time with my whittering on, and I'm going to pass over to Herb and Lucas.
Hello, people. It's a lightning talk, so we're going to kind of move through some of these quite rapidly. I'm here today with Lucas. I want to say hello, Lucas.
Hello. Hey.
And we're both at the University of Wolverhampton. So I'm a lecturer, and Lucas is a student. I think I'm right in saying this, Lucas. Had you ever heard of a mainframe?
No, not before this society.
And so you've never knowingly used one?
No.
Okay, well that's a great place to start then. So the University of Wolverhampton Mainframe Student Society came about informally about a year ago when a few of our students that enjoyed a mainframe event kind of took on the idea that maybe they should form like a social group society with kind of a focus on mainframes. And so they kind of took this idea and they said, well, let's have our first trip to IBM Hersley. And so you can see them there. There's like a little group of them. You may recognise that dapper gent with the cardigan over his shoulder who's showing them around Hersley. And it had quite a big impression because we saw the server rooms and we looked around and it was all good and all exciting. And on the back of that, we thought, well, okay, let's see what happens in the Freshers' Fair. I mean, I say we, I mean, it is them, not me. It was organised by the students themselves. They got some support from partners, local firm called RSM, and they supported them with like providing some stands and some goodies. And we tried to see if we could interest some incoming students in joining the Mainframe Society. And you know what? We kind of could. You'll see. We even got them, taking selfies with the 270 screen. And on the back of that, we had a little trip down to IBM Think, which was quite popular and made the university website. And if you see that picture in the middle, I mean, that's like an event in the evening. No one has to be there. It's just you've kind of managed to generate enough interest that people want to come along and see the mainframe. You might recognise, if you see that IBM picture on the right, you might recognise Lucas kind of second from the right. Oh, distinctive top there, very natty. So, Master Mainframe, I'm guessing a lot of you probably will know what that is. So it's an annual competition that IBM run, and it's also a way of kind of getting skills into schools and colleges. So they give you a challenge. You connect to a real mainframe. There are tutorials, there are digital badges you can collect, and it's literally a global competition. There's a national aspect that you're kind of competing with schools all over the world. Really interesting challenge. I've been putting in kind of students and encouraging them to take part for, maybe 6-7 years now, because they always have a good time and always enjoy it. Right. Oh, all right. So, one of the things that was going on at the university, there's a group called Aspire to HE. They're trying to promote university education to people who mightn't necessarily think about it. And so one of the things that they do for this widening participation is invite lecturers to come up with an idea for an event that might interest pupils at schools and colleges. And I thought to myself, well, we've got past the mainframe. Why don't we see if we could tie that in with our student mainframe society? So the idea is this kind of champagne fountain model where we get all the good stuff and the good ideas and we pour them in the top, we talk to the students like Lucas and the guys on the committee, and we say, why don't you run with this? Couldn't you do something interesting with it? And hey presto, interesting things result. So this was a picture, and you'll see Lucas there in the middle, where we took the guys to the GSE annual conference, and they hung around with some real mainframers, and they got some interesting ideas about how they were going to run this special session of Master Mainframe for local schools and colleges. At this point, I would ask, Lucas, how did you find GSE?
It was awesome, especially because I met people from Prague's Broadcom, and I got offered an internship in Broadcom for a summer, and that was awesome.
Yeah, pretty productive trip. So, with the Aspire people, they made contact with some local schools and colleges for us, like 6 different institutions. And we ran this event. On the left-hand side, you can see some of the text for the application I put in to get some funding out of them. I said, we're going to have this special day. We're going to learn about enterprise computing. There's going to be hands-on stuff. There'll be a competition. One of those kind of, please give me some money to run this event. And thankfully, we won our bid. And we ran 4 sessions between November and December when it finishes. We had a number of student mentors between 10 and 12. Between 25 and 30 students took part in each session. And we were kind of able to kind of fund the lunch and pay the mentors and give them some prizes as well. What actually happened? Well, on the day, in terms of hands-on learning, I recognize that gent in the middle, an IBMer, Paul Yarrow. We had our experts come in. I might recognize Mike Robinson from RSM, and just talk to these guys about what a mainframe is and the kind of impact it has on the world. And then we actually got into some of these exercises, and the student mentors kind of went between the tables. And they helped the students when they got stuck, and they talked to them about how the systems worked. So it was all quite friendly. And then as they got stuck in, they started to come up with their own ideas for systems. Now, Lucas, you were one of the student mentors for all 4 events. How did you feel that went?
I think it was awesome because Master Mainframe is really good in delivering the information to the students, even though the people probably didn't have that much IT skills as I do, and even then they've managed to finish. Some of them even passed too. And for example, my sister finished whole Master Mainframe, so I think it went really good.
Wow, yeah. So it was interesting how much progress we were able to make in just a short amount of time with the right coaching. So part of it we said was a competition, and so we asked the students to think up an idea about how they would create a large-scale information system to solve a problem. And so each of the groups, and these are blurry because we don't show the people's faces because they're under 18. So each of them got a chance to present their idea and pitch it to a panel who were kind of listening attentive to all the creativity. Interestingly, they had some ideas that maybe you wouldn't expect a mainframe to be used for in the first place. Every time we did it, we had a different range of ideas, and they were all really fascinating. So, for example, this is one which was all about using Internet of Things to the carbon in the atmosphere and that to kind of promote tree growth so that it could soak up kind of any extra CO2. That was a really interesting idea. We had this one. I particularly loved the graphics on these as they were planning it. It was like a pet tracker where you had like a special microchip that went in the pet's collars. And so if your dog or cat ever got lost and there were ways that you could find them, it could automatically kind of produce the lost pet kind of adverts as well. So that was fun. We had one on a kind of a system of like distributed prescriptions for people who can't get out to the pharmacist. There were some really creative ideas. We're really pleased to see them. And from a developmental point of view, the students got to stand up and present and talk to some of the subject experts. So, it's what we call a good day at the races. After every session, the student mentors, we all get together for a debrief and a cry. Not much crying. It was more laughing than crying, and a coffee at the end. And so we had 4 different goes at that, and so every time we did it, it got a bit better, and we kind of figured out, kind of how to manage the wrinkles. You see, everyone's smiling at the end, so very happy to have survived. And in practice, so our plan for the champagne fountains, we get some experts in, we pass down some enthusiasm, and we give our student mentors some responsibility. Goes down to the pupils, and what comes back at us is some really interesting new perspectives on how we might use the tech, and even more enthusiasm. We got some feedback from the pupils about how they hadn't really thought much about coming to university, but now they see how it connects with industry, the type of technology that you can use, which is very different to what you might see in your everyday life. They're very, very keen to get involved. So for us, that was the result. So I'm going to hand over to Lucas for a sec. In terms of his pedigree, Lucas joined us in October this year and joined the Mainframe Society straight away. He came with us to Think and to the GSE annual conference and was a mentor at all 4 events. He was also, incidentally, the first UK student to complete all 3 parts of Master Mainframe. So maybe you want to say a little about your experience, Lucas?
Yeah, I mean, it was awesome. When I first saw the Mainframe at the Master event, I got hooked instantly because it looks super cool, and not many people my age knows what Mainframe is. And yeah, and when I got shown the Master Mainframe, I got really a lot of time, so I basically finished everything in like 2 weeks. And then I got all the conferences like the IBM Think Summit or GSE, where I met awesome people around mainframes, which got me hooked even more. I tried to learn Rex, now I'm learning COBOL. I got badge hunting over Christmas. I got offered a Broadcom internship in Prague, which hopefully will be on, and that's super awesome. And I would like to get on in mainframe in future and have a job in there, hopefully.
Yeah, so it sounds like it could well be. We have had some early recognition in that the Mainframe Student Society has been nominated as a Society of the Year with our Students' Union based on kind of all the events that we've done. There's been some others outside of the ones that we've shown you. So far it's been really successful. We've been feeling really good about that. So arguably, when we say get them early, get them good, there's 2 types of early. There's kind of early career, and there's early before their attention wanders and goes kind of somewhere else. So, it's good that we're able to talk to people at schools and colleges. It's good that we're able to snag Lucas in the first kind of week of him rolling up at university. When we say get them good, we mean like get them talented, like Lucas clearly is, but also make them have a good experience, help them understand why this is a really cool and interesting platform. And we've seen some really great results through doing that. I think that is probably all I would say. I have a little plug for a talk that I'm doing next week, but I'm sure that might come up again at the end. And thank you very much. Ashley.
Thank you very much. That was really interesting. I was I'm quite impressed by all the different ideas that seem to come out of those sessions. That was really good to hear about them.
Herb has been very modest in the achievements of the Wolverhampton team when it comes to Master the Mainframe last year. Now, Herb's aware that they, from a UK point of view, the university had the most Part 1 finishers anywhere in the UK. He missed out on being the university with the most Part 1 finishers in Europe by one. So if Lucas's sister had been able to join the university for the day, he could have been tying. But I think just following on from really what Herb and Lucas were talking about, the impact these guys had in the sessions they ran. If you look at the number of students who actually completed Part 1 and Master the Mainframe on site in Wolverhampton, Herb and the team actually came out top globally for the number of Part 1 finishers. So out of 25,000 or more, just over 25,000 students, that's not a bad achievement. So just wanted to highlight the achievement of the guys at Wolverhampton and Herb's leadership there.
My name is Mark Hostler. I'm the OM for IBM Z-Trial, and I'm just going to be talking to you today a little bit about what Z-Trial is and how you can use it. I know that we've all got lots of extra free time at the moment, and so maybe Z-Trial will be relevant to some of you to actually get on and use some Z products and mainframe programs while you're in isolation. And I'm just going to take you through what Z-Trial is. So IBM Z-Trial is an offering from within IBM that started as part of the marketing initiative for some of the Z products, specifically z/OS Connect, because in order to sort of show the end users, the companies who use the mainframes, what the real value of these products were, we wanted them to actually try them out and sort of kick the tires of the software and understand the value without having to actually install and test these things on their own mainframes, which is actually a pretty high barrier to entry. So we came up with Z-Trial, and Z-Trial is a series of online virtual machines that you can request and have provisioned specifically for you, that you can then access Z software on a real, back-end z/OS. And go through a number of scenarios that will take you through the software. And we built it around these three principles of no charge, no install, and having it self-paced to make it available for the largest number of users as possible. The first one of that is probably the most important, the no charge. Z-Trial has always been no charge, and it always will be no charge. We don't want to charge people for having access to z/OS for the purposes of learning or for evaluation, and actually reducing that barrier is something that was really important to me personally. When I joined IBM 5 years ago, the first day on the job for me was the first day that I had ever seen a 3270 screen, and I would have loved to be able to sit down and get hold of 3270 stuff before I joined IBM, just to play around with things and start to understand how z/OS worked. And so it's something that I'm personally really interested in, trying to make this stuff more and more easy for people to experience. As I say on this slide, we need to be encouraging people to experience z/OS, not making it harder. We want people to understand the benefits of all of the great products that we have available for Z. No install is another one. Obviously, a lot of the customers we have at IBM are not able to install VPNs, not able to install new software and things in order to try this stuff out. So what we've done with Z-Trial is set it up through IBM Cloud. And essentially, when you request a Z-Trial through our website, what you will get is an email with a URL link in it. And that actually links you through to a Windows remote desktop. Each Z-Trial actually has two VMs that exist in the cloud. It has a front-end Windows virtual machine, which is the one that you access and the one that you interact with, and then a back-end machine, which is actually emulated z/OS, which is then connected to through the Windows. And we try and add as many possible ways to interact with the ZOS as possible. So we obviously have ZOS Explorer on the Windows. There's also a 3270 terminal, so you can actually get in and do some green screen stuff. And then some of the other products have web UIs as well. All of these are individually provisioned as well. That's another key point. When you get a Z trial, it's your Z trial for the duration. Nobody else has access to it, so you can, wreck it if you like, and it's not gonna affect anybody else. And that's what we want people to do. We want people to get in, break things. That's how people, really learn how to do this stuff. And the self-paced learning was the last one, and that's another really important one, I think. I think that a lot of people have the impression that the learning curve for mainframes is ridiculously steep. And actually, it's no steeper than any other, IT system that you haven't had experience with before. All of the Z trials that we've developed, we've tried to have them follow the same kind of experience. What we have is this Z trial scenario which guides you through with a series of videos and pictures and very clear instructions on how to interact with the software. And once you've got through those scenarios and you understand how the software works, for the rest of the Z trial you can just play around with it as much as you like. And obviously those scenarios are very, very different depending on the product, but we cover quite a lot of the Z stack. We've got 16 trials live at the moment. So we have the big ones. We've got DB2, IMS, Kix, and then we've got some of the other stuff that's sort of newer technology as well. We have the Node.js SDK. We have Zoe, that's a new trial, which is excellent. I've tried that a couple of times and really enjoyed it. And I'd encourage you to go on and try as many of the Z trials as you like and see what you think. So how do you get access? You go to ibm.biz/Z trial. If you just Google Z trial, it'll be the first thing. And there's a whole range of trials that you can get access to straight away. If you put a request in for a trial, all you have to do is give us your email address, and we won't email you after the fact. That's not for marketing. It's just so that we can send you the access credentials for the trial environment. You'll get that within 2 hours. When you request, you get the trial within 2 hours, and then that is available to you for the next 3 days. Z trials stay provisioned for 3 days. But if you want to play around with it for longer than that, all you have to do is there's a link in the emails where you can email us straight back and ask for extensions. We almost never deny extensions to people because it means people are really engaging. So we love to actually extend those out and let people play with them for a bit longer. So I'd encourage you all to do that as well. And the really exciting stuff is what is going to happen in the future. Z trial is something that I'm really passionate about, obviously, and I'm really passionate about getting that out and using it for other things. The infrastructure is there, and we want to get it in front of as many people as possible. So that includes, in the future, having stuff that's pre-GA, that's stuff that's not out yet, new technologies on Z, and we want them out in front of people before they're available generally. We want to do more of the larger class-based things with more in-depth stuff. Things like Mainframe is a great example of the resources that are available for people to learn mainframe applications. But what we want to do is make that easier and easier and easier for as many organizations as possible. This mainframers group, hopefully in the future we can get some big classroom provisions out and get 50 or 60 or 70 of these Z trials up and running at the same time and help people to guide through maybe some instructor-based learning. We can make those available for longer so that people can play around. They're great for things like hackathons. We can make them available for a few weeks so that people have time to really get their teeth into the software. And then in the future, one of the really, really big things that we're aiming for is being able to use not just the Linux-based ZOS emulation, but emulation on a bigger scale on a real mainframe so that we've got that performance aspect as well. So there's loads of exciting stuff coming. We're trying to cover as much of the Z portfolio as we can, and we've got loads of new trials coming within the next few months, and hopefully we'll be up to about 25 or 26 by the end of this year. So there'll be loads of stuff on there for you to get in and experience. I'll probably take the questions at the end, but that was IBM Z trial for any of you who are interested. And I'd encourage you all to go online and play around with Z trials and really kick the tires of some of the Z software.
Thanks, Mark. Herb, how can IBMers or anyone get involved with these sessions, not only at Wolverhampton but anywhere? Are they able to run these sessions just from where they are?
Yeah. So when we first thought of it, Paul was actually running a session where he was teaching kind of IBM interns how to run these wherever they went back to, when they went back to their own local university. And I mean, I think Paul can probably tell you how many unis took part, but there was a good chunk of UK universities had some kind of an event. So it's definitely worth reaching out. You know, if you know someone or you know somewhere that you think this might work, have a little chat with them. And you know, in our experience, people are quite open to kind of getting themselves involved.
Yeah, there's actually content available to run those sorts of events, and depending on your whether you're a student or you're actually in employment at the moment, you can register to become an advocate. You need to have completed certainly part 2 of Master Mainframe before you can get engaged in doing the digital badge. But no, there's certainly plenty of opportunities, and as Herb said, if you've got local universities, contacts, Master Mainframe competition is open to anybody over the age of 13 who's actually at school or college. So even if it's a sort of local school, you can go and run this sort of event, or anything that can be provided for you. Given the current climate and so many people in lockdown, and potentially with a little bit of time to spend actually doing some training, Ashley and the guys thought it would be useful just to have a quick run through of the plethora of training material and options that are out there available to you for free. A lot of it new for you to access from your armchair or whatever your preference is. Now, talking about new, for those who attended probably the last face-to-face meetup, I did actually cover this chart, so I'm going to go through this reasonably quickly. But just focusing on that bottom left-hand corner, which I've expanded for for easier viewing on the screen. This is training that's available through IBM at no cost. So Herb's been talking about the Master Mainframe competition. That whole system is available as a learning system through the full 12 months of the year. So if you want to get hands-on on a live system, you can go to that learning system and actually have a go at the same competition that Lucas and his colleagues went through. If you're in full screen mode, all of these links will work, which is why I've not highlighted web links for it. There's things like the ZOS Introduction Workshop, given so many people from KICS, the KICS Webbook courses are a great way to start to learn the fundamentals of KICS. That's all a YouTube video. You sit and listen to Will Yates for 5 hours, and you know as much as you need to know to get you going. Now, if you go to the Skills Gateway, there is links to either fee or free mainframe education, along with education on everything from sort of quantum and IoT to cloud. What I've highlighted on this page, just for your information, is the number of courses and badges that you can earn on the mainframe at no cost at all. So it's worth going to that Skills Gateway and just having a look. You can just, just looking at the numbers there, you can see the number of courses that are available. There's blogs, there's all sorts of information in there. But if you're looking for badges to sort of recognise the skill that you've developed, there's a significant number available just on the mainframe from that page. And then those are included in that are the 3 that are available for the Master Mainframe competition, and also available, interestingly, for the learning system. Whilst the competition is only open for the during the sort of autumn period and only available to students, if you go and use the learning system, you can still earn the badges, you just don't get the prizes. The IBM Z and Linux One community went live in the back end of last year. If you're looking for a one-stop shop for where to find information and links through to free education, blogs, webinars, go and join the IBM-Z community. If you're Europe-based, as I'm sure the majority of you are, there is a EU user group within the community where we provide more localized content. There was a webinar done this afternoon by my colleague in Germany that was looking at the mainframe from the hardware side, sort of building up from the sort of the bare bones to help understand how the machine works and why it works the way it does. That content is all available, and I'll come to the link for that in just a sec. So this is the newest edition, the IBM-Z Global Student Hub. So this was launched really in direct response to the fact that some 1.3 billion students are apparently out of school and college as a result of the lockdown in various countries. So this was taking a lot of the content that we would have gone to universities and talked about virtual. So if you're interested in learning more through webinars, this is a great resource. But is open to anybody really who is interested in mainframe. The focus is on students, but if you see from just looking at some of the content there, this is relevant to anybody who's interested in the mainframe. And what we're doing is running a series of webinars each week. We started off with one technical and one personal development. We are now adding to that a COBOL session as well, so there are 3 webinars running each week. Just go to that web page, register, and you can sign up to access the webinars. There's also a back catalogue of those sessions that you've missed, so you can listen to those at your leisure, and a whole batch of blogs as well. Now this one, a number of you will have seen before. If you're new to the platform, or you've just started, you're really trying to get a better understanding of what the mainframe is all about. We would normally run an 8 to 10 day introduction to the mainframe, so a mainframe fundamentals, ZOS fundamentals class face-to-face. What we've done with Coursera is to replace that with 60 hours of online training. It comes in 3 sections with 3 digital badges. Now, this was free for the first month. When I had a look earlier on today, it seems to be just register for free. So I'm not sure there's any charge at the moment for this Coursera class, but you've got that first month to get through as much of that as you can. A lot of clients and universities have access to Coursera classes, so it might be something you can get for free anyway. But this is a great way of really starting to get to grips with the fundamentals of ZOS. And combined with either the Master Mainframe Learning System or the competition, that really sets you up very nicely for then moving on to something like the Skills Gateway and starting then to add the specific sorts of training that are relevant to your interest or to your job role. Okay, so this is just now gone live. Some of you may have seen some of the discussions going on regarding COBOL and the sudden pressure that applications in the US were being put under by the number of people who were out of work, looking for medical cover. There was a lot of interest suddenly in COBOL. They were looking for COBOL programmers. There were people coming from everywhere volunteering to actually get engaged. So what we did here is to use the developer.ibm.com site and added now a COBOL section. So what you're seeing here is a COBOL education class that's up there. Also one provided through the Open Mainframe project. Again, all of these are free and the links are just at the bottom of the page for you if you want to know more about COBOL. Now I think the last page, so this is a second plug for Herb. That item in the bottom right-hand corner, as you can see, there are a number of major 2020 conferences are now going digital and free. The GSE conference is going virtual this year. That's not until November for the main conference, but what's happening is they're planning a series of lead-up presentations before that. Herb is doing one on the 6th, so I would encourage you to watch out for that one. The other big event next week is the Think conference. That would have been some 40,000 people, is now going digital. There are lots of different threads to look at, lots of content, lots of stuff that's free, so have a look there as well.
Okay, so last but not least, we have managed to get Tom Ross on the call. I know it's very early for you, so thank you very much for joining us. Hopefully you've managed to get yourself a coffee before coming on. So I'll hand over to Tom to talk about COBOL.
Good morning, good evening, whatever. Apologize for my American accent. I'm in California. I did not give myself the name Captain COBOL, but I accepted it happily. I think it's hilarious. So I have a sign on my door. You can find me on the internet as Captain COBOL. I've been working on COBOL compilers for 37 years now in IBM. And I'm sick to death of hearing people say COBOL is dead. And from the beginning, I've heard that, COBOL is dead. It's going to be replaced. So, IBM even thought that, like, PL1 would replace COBOL because it could do everything. But Fortran came first. That was going to replace COBOL, Pascal, you name it. The one I heard the most about was Java replacing COBOL. COBOL is going to die. Everything's going to be Java in no time. But then lately, there's things like Node.js and Swift being talked about. But if you actually Google Java is dead, you find all kinds of interesting things on the internet. People saying that absolutely Groovy will replace Java, et cetera, et cetera. So chasing programming languages as technology is kind of entertaining to me. Although people say, do people still use COBOL? Does it matter? Who cares about COBOL? Should I learn COBOL? Well, if I make my PowerPoint my current, I love this slide. This is about CICS, or kicks, and comparing kicks to Google searches. And if you think about how many people are grabbing their phones and doing Google searches all day long, every day, there are 59,000 Google searches every second globally, which is a massive amount. But if you compare to kicks, there are over 1 million. This chart is actually a couple years old. There's well over 1 million kicks transactions every second of every day, all day long. And from my estimates that I've heard of it, 90% of these kicks transactions are written in COBOL. So there's way more COBOL being used than Google searches. And kicks as well, of course. Kicks is our COBOL's buddy. So how can you learn about COBOL? There's a whole bunch of different ways. It's a kind of a secret in a way. But we have an IBM partner called Interskill, and they will provide all kinds of different COBOL training online and in person and all kinds of different options. And we have over 180 universities in the world are teaching COBOL. And IBM has an academic initiative. Micro Focus is another COBOL vendor. They have an academic program making sure that universities are still teaching COBOL. And then some stories. The University of North Texas did a study on their graduates at one point, and they found that of the students in their business computer information science major, the students who took COBOL as well as other topics, COBOL was an elective, made on average $10,000 more per year than the computer science graduates who didn't take COBOL as an elective. So that was kind of interesting. So is COBOL relevant? Yes, it is. Get more money. And then I had a customer once tell me that they're worried they're having trouble finding COBOL programmers. And I said, well, why don't you recruit at one of these universities that teaches COBOL? And they said, oh, well, we don't recruit. Well, so if you're not trying to find COBOL programmers, why do you say that you can't find them? I thought that was sort of an interesting contradiction. And then on the relevance of COBOL in the world, I was at a small company called Walmart at their development center giving a presentation about COBOL. And I had my screen, my laptop displaying on the wall, and or on a giant fancy TV, I suppose. And so one of the guys asked me a question, and I wanted to look up the answer in an email that I'd sent to another company. So I went into my email, displayed it for all the people in the room, and was looking through my folders of all these companies that I interact with about COBOL. And now Walmart is absolutely dedicated to COBOL. They have no discussions of using anything else. But they were still pleasantly surprised to see the names of all these companies that are using COBOL. It's every name you've ever heard of, every big company, every government, everything. And that was kind of fun that they were like pleasantly surprised that, wow, everybody uses COBOL. And then I was at Rabobank and in Holland, and the CIO invited me to his office. He wanted to meet Captain COBOL, which I thought was hilarious, that he thought I was a celebrity. And he said that they had a challenge in their company where people were arguing about what technology to use. Should they be using COBOL? Should they be using Mainframe, ZOS? Is there something better? Is there something faster, easier, smarter, more modern, whatever? And it was distracting their progress on their day-to-day work. So they decided to convene a group and study what is the best programming language to use and the best system to use to run a large bank. And at the end of all of their study, they realized that COBOL is the best language to use. It's ideal for financial stuff. And ZOS was the best platform to use. So they told their people, stop discussing what language to use and what system and get to work. We're done. We've decided. It's COBOL and Z. And then, as Paul said, COBOL is in the news. A lot of media groups are blaming the United States unemployment systems being overloaded and unable to handle their workload on COBOL. And it was the New Jersey governor who started it. He called it Cobalt, which is kind of unfortunate. But I just heard this morning that, and I've heard this before also, that the problem with their systems was not the COBOL, it's their web front ends were not designed well enough to handle huge workloads. And I just heard today from the Ohio unemployment system that they are having problems with many people applying for unemployment because of the COVID-19 problems. And the shining star in their system, they're having problems handling the workload as well. But they said that they have no problems whatsoever with the COBOL batch part of their system. That's fine. It's the web interface stuff, the web serving stuff that can't handle the workload. So I thought that was kind of like the opposite of what the news media are saying, that, oh, it's a 60-year-old language, it's holding everyone back. No, the COBOL is doing great. It's the other stuff that's the problem. And then finally, I wanted to talk a little bit about, is COBOL actually an old language? I mean, even Java is well over 20 years old now. C is ancient. COBOL is ancient, sure. Let's stop using the tire because that's old. But that's the way technology is sometimes, is technology as fashion. But just to point out some things about COBOL not being so old, right now we are adding features from the 2014 COBOL standard to the compiler every year, and sometimes in between releases through our continuous delivery model. The 2020X standard is currently being built by the Standards Committee, so there's going to be another new standard within a few years. And IBM COBOL, especially on ZOS, is very different in 2020 than it was in 2019. In 2019, we didn't support AMOD 64. We didn't have a UTF-8 data type yet. And we've improved the JSON support significantly in 2020. So COBOL, the base of it, like move A to B and things like that, are old. But all the other things that allow it to be the predominant web-serving language to handle JSON text coming from smartphones and UTF-8 data types and all that kind of thing, we're absolutely changing it on a regular basis to keep up with the needs of the modern world. So part of COBOL is old, and part of it is brand spanking new. So that's my talk.
So that is the end of our last lightning talk. So what we'll do now is we'll move on to the question and answers. We've got a couple of questions for the speakers, where you can access the Z Advocacy badge.
Yeah, I wasn't sure whether this was the Z Advocacy badge or whether it was the Master of the Mainframe Advocacy, whereas the Master of the Mainframe Facilitator badge, because there are three essentially for Master of the Mainframe. So I don't know whether that was what Matthew was asking or not.
Okay.
But if it's the Master of the Mainframe, the best location to go to is ibm.biz /Master of the Mainframe. And from that site, you can get access to the learning system and to the competition when it opens up later this year.
The next question is to Tom. So someone has made a comment on how they are struggling to find a job with their own background as in mainframe and COBOL, and companies are sort of looking for a lot more these days, and they were just looking to find out your take on that.
Oh, the companies need more than just mainframe and COBOL? Wow, that's interesting. I'd like to know exactly what more they're looking for. That's a tough question. I think that would be a different answer for every company, where they each have a separate challenge. And I mean, do you need to know more about dealing with JSON web service requests, or who knows? I don't have an answer for that one. That would be it would have to be company by company. I think if they say we also need you to know X and Y, and study those. I guess. Sorry if I don't have a good answer.
With a lot of, I think just having been a recruiting manager for a long time, you kind of recognise that a lot of what clients ask for, company ask for, is a wish list. They would like you to have all of these different things. The expectation is you will not have all of them. In fact, a lot of the customers we talk to, what they're actually looking for is rounded individuals who've got a breadth of skills. Now, the technical skills, if you've got COBOL, someone's going to bite your arm off at the moment. But I think it's that combination of technical skills, personal skills, and an aptitude to learn and to participate that employers are really looking for.
In my experience, I mean, I'm not sure what path they're going through for recruitment, but if you're kind of running the gauntlet of, kind of online keyword matching, you can well get caught out. If you take part in mainframer events, where you're kind of meeting people who are in the industry and you're having conversations and they kind of getting to know you, then it's a different conversation when you apply for jobs. So you might want to think about, well, what are the equivalent things like mainframers and kind of events where you could go and meet people in the industry, maybe even give a talk. And it wouldn't surprise me if you have more success if you go through.
Okay, we have another question for Tom. The question is, since you were tagged as Captain COBOL, the name became public. Has it changed the amount of time that you work on COBOL compiler as a result of people wanting to speak with you or clients? So has having that tag of Captain COBOL increased your work on COBOL?
Well, 100% of my work is on COBOL already, so yeah. So now I'm 110%. But I do think it's got like the fact that the CIO of Rabobank, I forgot to mention that their bank has an unfortunate name. If you pronounce it a certain way, it sounds like Rabobank. And but he, this guy wanted to meet me because of my title, so it has opened some doors for me. But I was full speed ahead, not being able to keep up with my work on COBOL before. But I do have to be very careful about, I don't put my email address in my presentations, because otherwise I get more thousands of emails per day than I normally do. So I'm already kind of overloaded, but I don't know if Captain COBOL has made it more overloading, but it's made it more fun.
So we have a question for Mark. So what kind of scenarios are available in IBM Z trial?
The Z trials, there are 16 trials, and each of the trials has at least 3 scenarios. The scenarios themselves are supposed to demonstrate a particular value of the product within about 30 minutes. So to give you an idea of what we're talking about, with the ZOS Connect Enterprise Edition trial, the 3 scenarios are: expose a Kix COBOL program as a RESTful API, expose an IMS application as a RESTful API, and call a RESTful API from a COBOL application. So it's those sort of focused activities that help you work through.
There's some more questions coming in for you, Tom. We've got Kix is great, and I built systems using C++ and Java, but why COBOL?
COBOL is faster and better at handling financial transactions than either C++ or Java. It's designed from the beginning for business. I can have 6 different data types to represent. Actually, I'm ignorant of the English pounds and pence, I guess, dollars and cents, euros and cents. So decimal arithmetic is key to financial processing. And COBOL in particular has been designed from the beginning to manage all this kind of stuff. String handling, for example, is much easier in COBOL than it is in C and C++. There's no, you can have a string of a given length, which is fast in processing, rather than trying to figure out the length by looking for the null terminator and things like that. So COBOL is we have many comparisons for performance. In fact, DB2 did a performance comparison once. They had customers asking them, what's faster, pure SQL, C, COBOL, or Java? And they didn't have a COBOL person, so I took the C program and converted it to Java. And I wasn't surprised, but COBOL was the fastest of all of the choices that they could use for the DB2 programming. So anyway, it's very, very efficient. And it's easy to read compared to C. I mean, if you grew up with C, I guess you can read C easily. I have a hard time with it. But non-programmers can read COBOL and understand it. And that's a huge thing if I'm running a big business and managers want to know what's going on in my code, they can read COBOL and figure it out. But a typical manager who didn't take computer science isn't going to have any idea what a C program is doing or Java kind of thing. So there's a lot of kind of practical, not very sexy things about COBOL that make it a better choice for business.
So the next question actually leads on a little bit from that, and it's to Tom again. So they've asked Captain COBOL, what do you think about the coexistence of COBOL and Java in ZOS?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's been a very big, important part of what we're working on. We're working on improving it again, actually. But in 2001, we came out with a COBOL that had object-oriented COBOL built into it based on the Java model, so that when you compiled the COBOL program, it would create a Java piece as well. And so I could write Java classes in COBOL. I could invoke a class or a method, and a Java user, for example, would have no idea if he is invoking something that was written in Java or something that was written in COBOL. So we have very tight integration of Java and COBOL on ZOS. There's been a lot of discussion about making it easier. The challenge is you often have people who know Java and then other people who know COBOL, but they might not know, the COBOL folks might not be familiar with object orientation or that part of the COBOL language. And so finding someone who knows both COBOL and Java is one of the challenges in that area. But there is new code coming into Mainframe all the time, written in Java, and of course there's tons of COBOL, and people want to reuse these pieces they want to use the COBOL from the Java and the Java from the COBOL, and so it's key. It's been a major initiative of ours, and right now we're coming up with a hopefully even easier and better way to have COBOL and Java interoperate on ZOS.
The next question again is to Tom. How does someone become a COBOL developer besides the inter-skill courses?
For myself, when I first heard about COBOL at school, I was learning Fortran and PL1 way back in the day, and I thought they were talking about cobalt, the metal. I had no idea. I joined IBM, and they said, how about a job as a COBOL compiler developer? And I thought, well, why would I do? Don't you already have a COBOL compiler? Why would you need COBOL developers? And, of course, I learned a lot there. It's constantly changing. But I taught myself COBOL when I first joined IBM, and it took me about a week and a half. And I wrote a program that could read my weekly running mileage and give me an average and draw a graph of it and all that kind of stuff. So, but there are a lot of courses online. If you Google COBOL education, you'll find all kinds of information. And I think there are companies still doing on-the-job training of COBOL as well, but it would probably be better to go to something like Interskill or a university or an online course. There's tons of stuff. If you Google COBOL education, you'll get, of course, every time you Google everything, you get 16 million hits, but there are a whole bunch of relevant hits that can help you out.
Yeah, there's a number of useful links off the chart deck that I went through earlier as well.
The next question is, how often is the web server done on ZOS? Would that include Kix?
How often? Compared to other platforms, maybe? I would say a tremendous amount. That's a huge feature. There's way more companies are running their businesses on COBOL and ZOS, and so those companies need to have give access to their customers by their smartphones and their browsers to their applications, to the company's the customers' accounts, etc. So everyone is doing it. So it's probably the number one web server platform on the planet, based on looking at the number of Kix transactions, etc. There's just as many web transactions, probably. And a bunch of those Kix transactions are actually Kix being the web server.
This one is for Paul. So any chance of a hobby mainframe system with Kix and IMS? I know that Master of the Mainframe doesn't have those.
Yeah, I think the answer to that in simple terms is no. What we have available through the learning system at the moment is the best we have for hands-on. Clearly, you've got Z-Trial as another option to get some initial access to it. It's one of those things that we've been looking at for a long time, but we don't have an answer for yet to be able to provide that capability for the hobby mainframe.
The next question, we're back to Tom again. So what percentage of customers have upgraded to COBOL 6?
We have well over 1,000 different clients, mainframe clients using COBOL. I don't know the exact numbers. And more than half of them have purchased COBOL version 6. Now, what does it mean to have they moved? To me, I've moved to COBOL version 6 when I recompile all my programs, but often in Z that's impractical because they're so busy running their businesses. They don't have time to recompile programs. They usually only recompile when they make a change to the source, and they have to recompile. So I have not heard yet of a customer who is 100% recompiled with COBOL version 6, but for sure a majority of customers are moving towards version 6, and a bunch of customers started moving aggressively to version 5 with the potential of huge performance improvements and reduced CPU, reduced MIPS, and reduced, the most important one in IBM is MSUs. That's the number that IBM uses to send bills to our customers to run their systems. So if they pay IBM less, they keep more money and they make more money. So it's been very, very popular, extremely aggressive migration to the new compilers. The most aggressive in my career because of the chance to have this performance improvement just by recompiling. I don't have to redesign my applications and look for hotspots and do performance profiling. I can just recompile and test and redeploy, and suddenly I've got better performance. So it's been kind of a whirlwind for me of customers moving. But as far as like the licenses, way more than half of the COBOL customers have purchased COBOL version 6 already. If they're using it, we can't really tell. We don't have those kind of metrics unless they call us up and say, we just compiled our 30,000th program or something. And I do know of customers like United Health in the United States had over 20,000 programs recompiled by the end of 2017 with a newer version of COBOL. So there is a whole bunch of it going on. And there's a bunch of people just starting out as well. I give these COBOL migration workshops on the over WebEx probably once a week to customers who need to move forward.
Does IBM COBOL handle objects like C++?
No, it does not handle like C++. It handles objects like Java. So unfortunately, there is not a true object-oriented interoperability between COBOL and C++. But there isn't between C++ and Java either. So we had a lot of customers wanting to use Java and wanting to mix Java and COBOL, and so that's the direction we went. So we don't have a C++-based object-oriented COBOL. We have a Java-based object-oriented COBOL. Now, I think C++ can be hybrid as well. COBOL can be hybrid. It can be object-oriented and procedural in the same application. So you can do almost anything. And COBOL programs can be C programs. You can write a C function in COBOL. You can write a Java method in COBOL. COBOL can do anything. But it doesn't actually do pure the same exact object orientation, object representation as C++, but you could mix them.
The next question is, IBM often talks about Java and zip enablement, but we see no news about COBOL exploiting zip potentially. What does Captain COBOL, not Captain American, have to say about having some COBOL running on zip?
The reason for, I don't know how detailed I should get here and get in trouble politically. The reason that we invented zip and zap was to make the ZOS and the mainframe an attractive server for Java applications, because Java wasn't as fast as COBOL and it used a lot of CPU. So we made a decision to make the CPU usage of Java free, and that meant that even if Java was a little bit slower, or a lot of bit slower, depending on how politically correct I'm going to be, it was still an attractive platform. And we wanted to make sure that Z is the ultimate server platform on the planet. And I think we've succeeded. So Zip was a step in that direction to make sure that you can run your COBOL on the ultimate server platform, and you can run Java. If we enabled COBOL for Zip, and so that you could run your COBOL without paying for the CPU time, IBM would immediately go out of business, because most of the workload on Z is COBOL and kicks, and if it was free, then we wouldn't get any more money anymore, and we'd have to apply for unemployment.
So we have two more questions, and I think that's probably all we're going to have time for. So this is your last question, Tom. Can I use COBOL to write system software or only application programs?
Sometimes you can, yes. It's not as, bit manipulation is tricky in COBOL, and there are places in system programming where you can't have a runtime environment. It kind of has to be like Metal C or Assembler with no runtime library required. But you can do some system programming. There are definitely system programmers processing SMF records, for example, on Z. SMF records are a way of keeping track of what's going on my mainframe, and I know lots of people are processing and managing their mainframe system as a system programmer, processing their SMF records using COBOL. So I guess it depends on what you mean by system programming, but I think of I couldn't write part of the operating system in COBOL, but I can do some system programming jobs with COBOL.
The last question is for Herb and Lucas. So the question is, how long does each stage of the master of the mainframe take to complete roughly? And also, which task in master of the mainframe was your favourite?
I think I'll leave that one to Lucas.
It really depends how much time you spend on it and how fast do you want to do it. Like, I know when I did it for the second time, I finished the whole master mainframe in 4 hours. But in general, I think like a week or two. And my favorite task from it was probably Rex programming. Mainly, there is a task where you do a slot machines, and that was just awesome.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much. And that's all that we're going to have time for, because I'm very conscious of the fact that we're just coming up to time now. So I just want to take this time to thank all of our speakers that have taken the time out of their day to come and share their experiences, the resources that are available, and just sort of their thoughts on mainframe skills from home. I'd like to thank all of the attendees, and thank you very much for staying on and listening to all these different things. If anyone does have any other questions that they didn't get a chance to ask or have a chance to sort of get answered, please keep sharing them on the Slack channel. You can find the Slack channel from the Meetup page if you aren't already a part of that. But keep in touch, and if you do want to be involved in any other ways, so if you want to speak, if you have a session that you think would work well, or if you want to be part of the planning team, please reach out, and we will see you all again next time. We are hoping to have another virtual event very soon, so keep your eyes peeled, and we will post that on the Meetup page and on the Slack channels as soon as we have that date organised. So thank you very much for everyone, and I will close the event now.